my career has really been defined by being a recruiter. I help companies find people, and I've helped tens of thousands of people literally find a new job. So my perspective sort of on the workplace is unique because I literally get to peer into hundreds of companies. I get to sort of see what their best practices are, and I realize that a lot of companies have the same struggles. And that's why I'm here, is I think that a lot of companies, maybe yours included, are struggling to attract and retain the best talent. And what I've learned is that connectivity builds an environment that helps you grow the next generation of leaders in your company, and that mentorship, our topic today, is really the critical mission that drives connectivity. My speaker's bio lists me at about 5'8". I'm probably about 5'7 and a quarter, but we'll round up. So I can always remember a quote by Napoleon. He said, "The only way to learn the science of war is to read and reread the campaigns of the great captains." What he meant by that is that in his business, which was warfare, experience got you killed. Now, the stakes may not be quite so high for us, but I hope that your minds, your hearts are sort of open to the lessons I'm going to share today. The connectivity piece that I'm talking about, mentorship. The struggle that most people have and most organizations have at building this connectivity is that they don't understand how different people in the workplace communicate. It's really a generational issue. So I want to start with a brief overview of the 4 generations that are working side by side in today's workplace. So here's the 4 generations. First are the traditionalists. They were born prior to 1946. Well, along come their kids, the baby boomers. They were born between 1946 and 1964. Today, they represent about 45% of the boomers became really the first workaholics in history. Not because it was necessarily the right thing to do, but it was what was necessary just to get ahead. They believed in things like you work your way to the top. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Oh, I'm channeling my father right now. You pay your dues. They really did pay their dues under the old hierarchical structure of the traditionalists. Both parents worked. Women entered the workplace at record numbers. Now, this really helped shape the 3rd generation, which was Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. Dualism, this conflict, when we compare Generation X and the baby boomers, tends to be the #1 source of conflict in the workplace. Boomers are in the best place to mentor Gen X and Gen Y, our 4th generation. I'm reminded how different, though, Gen X managers and baby boomer managers are. Having worked with all these companies, I remember one in particular. There was a Gen X manager and a baby boomer manager, and corporate came down and said it was time they were going to have to lay somebody off. And these 2 managers, after talking about it for some time, they realized that Steve, unfortunately over in the accounting department, was going to be the one that was going to have to be let go. They pretty quickly realized one of them was going to have to go tell poor Steve. Pretty quickly, Gen X raised his hand and said, "I'll do it." Off he goes, and sometimes later he comes back and he's holding a $10 bill. The baby boomer says, "Well, did you tell Steve?" Gen X says, yeah, sure did. He says, "Well, Mr. Gen X, where'd you get the $10 from?" He says, "Well, Steve gave it to me." The baby boomer's just astonished. He says, "You went and told Steve he's out of a job and he gave you $10? Gen X says, "Yeah, I just walked up to him. I said, 'Hey, Steve, heard you're on unemployment.' Steve said, 'It's got to be a mistake. I'm not on unemployment.' I said, 'I'll bet you $10 you are.'" See, that's the problem with Gen X. Gen X's soft skills seem to be lacking a little bit. Gen Y represent about 25% of today's workforce. They were born from 1981 to 2000, and this was sort of the high-tech, always-on generation. The boomers, again, are in the best position to mentor out of all the generations. Unfortunately, most mentors, baby boomers especially, tend to approach the mentorship relationship as the old sage, the person that's been around the block a time or two and is going to pass down insights or the right way and the wrong way to be successful. When in fact, that actually leads to very ineffective mentorship relationship. So I want to give you now the 3 principles for effective mentorship. The first is that the mentor needs to understand that they are simply a facilitator of a learning process. Number 2 is that mentorship really isn't just about building skills alone, although we certainly want to teach techniques and methods and make someone more effective in their job. Mentorship is also a relationship that helps grow behaviors and attitudes. We're really trying to build the whole person in a mentorship. The third principle of mentorship is that mentorship is really just a relationship for intentional learning. And if we're going to have purposeful, intentional learning, then we need to have a plan. We need to be on the same page. Our mentors and our protégés really need to have a common goal and a common vision for what they hope to achieve out of that relationship. I'm having placed all these folks all over the country, really. I'm reminded of a young man. He went to work at a company, and as young people sometimes do, he was trying to impress the boss, so we worked late. He worked late several nights in a row, and one night this young man's walking through, and he sees the CEO, and he's standing in front of a shredder, and he's holding a single sheet of paper. And he says, "Young man, this is a very important and sensitive document. Do you know how to work this thing?" And the guy says, "Yes, sir." Taking the paper and sending it through the shredder, the CEO says, "Great, I just need one copy." The point is that sometimes when we're not on the same vision, when we don't share the same goal, we oftentimes get an outcome that we didn't expect and that we don't want. Proverbs says that iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another, and that's what this mentoring process is really about. Growing together by surrounding ourselves intentionally with other sharp people. What I've found, though, in all the companies that I've worked with is that really anyone, and I mean literally anyone, can be a mentor because we all have unique life experiences. Scott was another person. He was a simple guy, really, born to a modest family. He grew up in Pennsylvania. And after school, he joined the Pennsylvania Railroad. And just an entry-level manager, nothing real special about him. But after some years, he actually spent 8 years with him, eventually moving into a sort of a middle management job. He hired a secretary, and he hired a young man named Andrew to come work for him. Andrew made the equivalent of about $10 or $11 in today's dollars. Not much money. But over the next couple of years, Thomas realized that Andrew was struggling to pay the bills. Andrew came from a very, very poor family, and making $10 or $11 an hour just was quite a struggle. Andrew, I guess, was just a simple guy. I mean, he made, answered the phone and, filed, helped the CEO shred documents, whatever was needed. But Thomas decided that, realized that I want to be a mentor to young Andrew. I live a middle-class lifestyle and know a thing or two about investing. I want to teach this young man how to manage his money in a way that he's not going to struggle quite as much. So we did just that. I became a mentor to young Andrew, taught him how to invest. As a matter of fact, helped him save up his money to make his very first investment, which was a purchase of stock in a small messaging company. Well, Andrew Carnegie was that guy's name. And he turned the gains on that very small investment in a $10 an hour job into literally one of the biggest fortunes in history. When Andrew Carnegie retired and he sold his company, he had the equivalent of 4% of the U.S. national wealth. And it all started because his mentor, the middle manager at the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, taught him how to save and invest his money. Andrew Carnegie also, by the way, gave away everything he ever made. Built schools. A simple process of facilitating the learning experience of our protégés. And they begin with simple, small acts. It could just simply be taking a new employee under your wing and helping them to manage their finances so they can pay the bills. Because that's what started Andrew Carnegie on his route. It turned him into one of the greatest philanthropists in the history of the world. Or it could be that you help an employee that's struggling with a skill that you're really accomplished in, because that's what put Winston Churchill on his path to save the Western world. Or maybe you, somewhat like Daniel Ford did with Francis Bellamy, you simply extend a helping hand to a neighbor that's in need. I don't know what path your mentorship would take you down, and I don't know what new trails your protégés might blaze. Maybe you're the next mentor of a Carnegie or a Churchill or a Bellamy. But I do know that one of the greatest offenses in life, and one of the things that helps break apart successful companies, is that when good folks fail to act when their hearts and their minds compel them to make a difference. Thanks for letting me come and share with you.